Some of you guys read the newsletter, the blog. It was actually a recycled blog with a few additions. Oh, we haven't even sent it yet. So you certainly have not read the newsletter. It's going to be sent tonight, and then you'll read it. But it's a blog that I sent a couple of years ago, or an article that I wrote a couple of years ago when Chris tested for his Red Sash. And we've had a bunch of tests in the dojo recently, and so I wanted to talk about this idea. And people ask me from time to time, like, how does the ranking system with the sashes work? And they usually call them belts, but they're sashes because we teach Chinese martial arts. And so I want to talk about it in kind of specific to us, but also just in general, this concept of testing ourselves and having like milestones that we set, because it is valuable. It's a valuable experience. If it wasn't, we wouldn't do it. So two of the people who tested for Red Sash are in class tonight, Catherine and Robin. They've been around for a long time. Robin, since the first month that we opened the school, I think. And it's serious business to get a Red Sash here. In fact, when I started with Sifu Brown, his school had been open for almost 10 years already, and he had one Red Sash, maybe two at that point. I think just one. And it was like such a crazy thing to see a Red Sash on the mats. The vast majority of classes, there was no Red Sash. And so it's kind of a weirder thing for us to have so many. We got 4 new ones, plus the 2 that we had before that, and the 2 that just moved here from Sifu Brown School. So that, if you do the math, that leaves 8 Red Sashes, which is bizarre. We've got a ton of Red Sashes already, and if Sifu Brown's watching this, he's probably thinking, you test people too early, it's too easy. I think that the people who took this test would beg to differ. This test was how long? 6.5 hours minus 7 minutes. Now that wasn't 6.5 hours of pure physical work cardio, but most of it was a very hard test. And I told them mine was only a smidgen longer than that. Mine was 7 hours, and that was like one of the most traumatic and fun experiences of my life. The only thing more traumatic about that was the part that came before it, the meditation. So for our advanced tests, meditation is a big part of it, and you said it was the hardest part of the test, right? Same thing for me. The physical part, the thing is you go into it knowing that you're just going to die, and by the end, you're just barely standing up on your feet. But the meditation is a little bit scary, because if you move, you fail the test. And I don't mean like if you jump up and down, I mean if you itch, or if you like sneeze or cough or move too much being anything more than this. If you do anything more than just a deep breath, you're out. And man, I remember my Red Sash test meditation. So the Red Sash test meditation is 2 hours long, sitting still, and I had it all figured out. I was leading up to the test. I thought, I'm just going to make sure that I am over prepared. So I meditated for longer than 2 hours. I think I meditated for like 2 hours and 15 minutes a couple of times. And I sat in a beanbag chair, a giant beanbag chair, and I would sit kneeling in Seiza, and it felt like I was sitting on a cloud. It was beautiful. And I just did it, like 2 hours went by like that when I was preparing for the test. Then on the day of the test, I go to sit down. I'm feeling real comfortable, real confident. I sit down in Seiza in this giant puffy beanbag chair, and I'm meditating, and I'm having a pretty decent meditation for the first half hour, 45 minutes, and then I start to feel a prohibitive pain, just a terrible pain in my hips. And I realized after that my hips had just slowly kind of sunk and slid into the most painful possible position, where you guys have felt this, where something's just not right and you need to like pop it to get back into the right place, but you're not allowed to do that. So I sat there for the last hour of the test in pure agony, and I swear to you, I spent a large portion of that meditation thinking, I'm going to fail this test because I'm going to vomit from the pain that I'm in right now. And I somehow just sat still for the last hour. And I told Sifu Brown when he came in to ask us how the meditation went, I said, that was the worst meditation of my entire life, Sifu. And I didn't move, but it was pure guts. I mean, the first half was nice. The second half was just all will. And he used to say that about the test. If you are going to pass that part of the test, either you have been regularly meditating, or you've got an incredibly strong will to be able to sit through that long without moving. Luckily for me, I had both. I had been meditating every day for years, and when that didn't work, I had a super strong will, and I just said, I'm not moving at all. What was your meditation like?
It was the opposite.
Here, come here and tell us about it.
My prep for the meditation, sir, was similar to yours. I tried to break through my target. So I had done 2 hours and 4 minutes the weekend before. And
it's plenty of overlap.
And leading up to it, and I had great experiences during my practice. And then the first maybe 20 minutes to half hour of the test meditation, I sat in terror.
Yeah.
I just thought my body was just gonna spontaneously get up and move.
Because you asked me right before the test, you said, Sifu, because I asked, is there any more questions? And she says, well, what happens if I sneeze or I cough? And I said, you failed the test. And apparently you were not planning for that.
Yes, sir. And then I started to have these thoughts of, okay, so if you don't pass the test, then you don't have to write your paper tomorrow. And you
hadn't written your paper yet?
I do it after the meditation.
Okay.
And then you can
in case you become enlightened during your meditation.
The
you have a great.
better after
of course
after
it is.
Meditation. And then I thought, well, I can still come to class on Saturday, and I don't have to take the test.
Sure.
So I started to have all these positive thoughts about, like, okay,
how great it would be if I failed.
And then I realized, okay, now some time has passed by, and I'm just doing it. I just have to keep doing it. And then I started to have some minor peaceful moments.
Got it. Well, that's great. Yeah. You made it. That's all that matters.
Thank you, sir.
How was yours?
Yes, sir.
Zane, just make sure that she's in the frame.
Yeah, I won't be. You'll have to move it over a little bit. So I had a meditation on Sunday prior, about the same length of time that the test was going to be, and it was a really nice meditation, like beautiful, peaceful. Wasn't really aware of time passing. It was great. My test meditation was kind of like the other end of the scale of that, where it wasn't so good. Lots of thoughts racing through my head, doing my best to just stay in contact with the breath, but like doing all sorts of like tricks, like thinking of all the people that I've been practicing with, like using one breath for each person, breath in, breath out for each person as I was thinking of them, but definitely like pure will holding on to something that was going to have me stay there and sit still. And at one point I had the thought, oh my goodness, if I do move, I don't have to do the test on Saturday. But then I was like, I've got Robin and Anne and Erin, and I can't not do the test with them. That would just be insane. So I sat still. Yeah.
Good.
That was it. So.
Yeah, the test I think for most of us, a large part of that meditation is just sitting in terror and like making sure don't move. And you cannot do that for 2 hours straight because something is going to fall apart at some point. When you guys meditate on your own, I hope that you're not sitting like that. And when you're meditating in class, I want a little bit of a sense of if I move, it's not good because I don't want you to mess up other people's meditation or your own meditation. But meditation is not sitting there and thinking about not moving or sitting there and thinking about all the people that you're going to let down if you fail or whatever it is. It's just sitting and watching the breath. And to be able to do this meditation the way that we want to, which for when I got to my Black Sash meditation, it was 3 hours long, and that was a nice, smooth meditation. And at that point, apparently, I got it. And I just was, just sitting and meditating, and I had no thoughts of I'm going to fail, like I need to stay totally still. I just trusted myself and trusted my meditation. So a little bit of trust in yourself is very important. It goes a long way. and don't move on the test or you fail. So the physical part of the test is grueling. Like I said, mine was 7 hours long, and there were people who were throwing up. I think half of the test, and there were 7 or 8 of us in the test. Half of the people threw up during the test. On your test, the only person who threw up was not even taking the test. It's rough when you're even helping. Julia threw up. So it's rough when you're taking the test and when you're helping with the test. And then some people were sick. Some people were just in terrible shape. And that's part of why the test was so long. You guys, your test was so long just because I felt like being a little bit extra mean that day. But it's meant to challenge. It is absolutely meant to challenge us, and it challenges everybody. Every test that we take, and really every class to some degree or another, should be challenging. Whether it's one technique, or you're in Tai Chi and you're learning a new posture, or you're just doing something that you're bad at and you recognize it. There is a challenge. And for some of us, it's like the whole thing is such a challenge that it's over my head and I feel overwhelmed. After you've been around for a while, it's not so much like that anymore, but there's still a couple of things every single time that you should feel like, oh, I should be doing better at this. And the test is like that to the absolute ultimate nth degree, where you are doing things that you've been practicing for a while, but you're not perfect at. The forms, for example, some of you guys have started to learn forms, and if you haven't yet, you will. But it's hard to do that under pressure in front of people when you're already kind of tired. And then by the end of the test, you're sparring, and you have been working hard for hours already. And like I said, you can just barely stay on your feet, but you have to keep going, keep going. I remember the only time that I ever swore in the dojo was on my Black Sash test, when I was sparring 5 people at once, and one of them punched me in the ear, this ear, and perforated my eardrum, and it happened before, and I knew what it was, and I just said under my breath, I said, "You B word," because I just was finally broken down to the point where I couldn't keep it inside, and nobody else heard me except me and maybe the person who punched me in the ear. But that is necessary for us. If we're not challenged, we're not growing. If you are not being pushed, you're not getting as good as you could be. The logo, I'm not going to take off my jacket, but the logo, if you guys haven't seen it before, is a box of lines that are going out like that. And there's a martial artist sitting there who's not me. It's just a martial artist. And the martial artist's head is poking up out of the box, which is a symbolism of breaking through your limitations. And the lines going out that form the box symbolizes your limitations are growing, basically. So what you're able to do, you're expanding your comfort zone, you're expanding your abilities. And if you are not pushed, if you're not challenged, that will never happen. It's as simple as that. So part of what I love the most about the test is knowing that I'm going to be pushed and I'm going to have an experience of doing something that I previously could not do. Before my time in the dojo, there's pretty much nothing that we do in here that I could have done. But if you look at what you can do now versus what you could have done a year ago or 2 years ago, it is vastly different. And for those of you who haven't been here for a year or two, you'll see that. And it's because of the way that we're constantly being pushed in class by our partners, by the way that we push ourselves. And it should be the same thing in meditation, meditating for longer, meditating sitting more still, meditating trying to get deeper. There's always this process where I get to this point and I'm trying to get a little bit better, and I'm trying to get a little bit better. And the test serves as a milestone where you can look at this test and compare yourself to how you were at the last test, and you can see significant growth. If nothing else, just because I know this much more that I had to do on this test that I did not know and didn't have to do on this previous test. And the more tests you do and the more you can remember going back in time. I mean, I remember my yellow sash test, and I thought that I was pretty good then, but I look back on it now and I realize that I was not great. And this is really important to us if we see growth and if we see improvement as an important part to our practice, which on some level, of course, it is. If you're showing up regularly to class and pushing yourself, you will improve. You should improve. I was talking about this to the kids the other day, and you hang out with kids and you see them, like a month or a few months or a year in between times, and they're just like so much bigger and more mature and all of this. But when the kid looks at themselves in the mirror every day, just like us, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we don't see anything that's different from the day before, unless you went through a test and you got a nice big bruise under your eye. But you're pretty much the same, and we see ourselves as being the same. And the truth is we're not. We're changing, at least a little bit, right? And we're looking older, and some of us aren't excited about that change, but it's happening. You're getting stronger, or you're getting weaker, you're getting more flexible or less flexible. Something is changing, right? And when you're looking at yourself every day, it's hard to see that. When you're coming to class and you're kind of judging where I am today versus where I was yesterday, it's very difficult to see that. Maybe impossible. So this is like you plant a seed and you have to water it and just let it go, right? But looking at it every day, expecting to see improvement is like digging up the seed and looking at it and then burying it again, taking it out the next day and looking at it, and you're gonna kill your practice. You're gonna kill your meditation. You're gonna kill whatever kind of possibility for growth there is by expecting that much. Yet, if you look at it after a while, you just let that seed grow, you come back and look at it months or years later, you notice that you have made a huge amount of progress. And it's really nice to feel that way. It's really great. I mean, is there a better feeling than finishing that Red Sash test after 6.5 hours and being like, oh, I did it, and that's it. I don't have to worry about that again. I'm not testing for years from now. It's really nice. But then there's another side of it where you will have days, and you might even have months, and you might even have years later on in your practice where you feel like you're just at that plateau, and you feel like you're not really getting better. And we got to be okay with that too, because this is the whole idea of effortless effort and just striving without striving. I go and I work and I do it without needing to get better. Because if I'm attached to that outcome of improving, or I'm attached to, at a lot of martial arts schools, they test like every month or every couple of months, because unless I see that little stripe on my belt or my sash, I can't tell that I'm making any kind of improvement. And I've had people tell me that here. And when the tests are longer and fewer and far between, or you're in Tai Chi and it's like, I learned this form a year ago and I haven't finished the next one, or I haven't learned anything new, what's going on? Sometimes it can seem like you're just going at a crawl. And if we get into this kind of mindset where I have to be making improvement at the pace that I think I should be making improvement by, then it's going to be a really long, impossible journey. You have to just be willing to just start down the path and walk, and recognize that I might never get to the end of this road, whatever I think that is. I'll be really honest with you guys. It's very possible that none of you will make it to Black Sash, even you guys who already have a Red Sash. It is impossibly hard and takes way longer and more than you think that it will take. If you start martial arts thinking, I have to get to my Black Sash here, you will be so disappointed being in this school. If you start doing Tai Chi thinking, I've got to learn a posture every single time, or I've got to get to the end of the form by this time, you're going to be sorely disappointed. It just will not happen at the pace that you want or the pace that you expect. And once you get that, once you realize that I don't have to be making X amount of progress, I don't even have to make any progress, I can just be there and do it. when you let go, that is really when you start to make progress. And I don't just mean physical progress on that level. It's usually a mental breakthrough. Where in class before I was all tense and worried about getting it right. Now I can just allow it to flow through me, and that's when you're going to become truly great. So that is just the same basic idea of I'm not attached to anything. I'm not even attached to getting better, and I can put in the work and put in those hours without having to get to a certain rank, without having to get better at this technique or that technique, without having to get anything. I just do it because I love it. It's why the first way out of the 7 ways of becoming great at martial arts, which we don't go over that often, but the first way is, no wait, that's to find a great teacher. The 7th way is to love it, right? Yes. So you have to love it, but apparently you have to do all that other stuff first. If you don't love it, if you don't just enjoy the act of coming and doing it, you're not going to stick around long enough to get great. It's not going to happen. If you guys are newer beginners, white sashes, and you're thinking, I don't love it yet because I've only been in a couple of classes and I don't know how I feel about this whole thing. You have to at least enjoy it to a degree. You got to enjoy it enough to come back the next time. Every time you come to class, you're kind of putting experiences in your bank, in your experiential bank. And when you have a good experience, you're putting that little coin, that little shiny gold coin in, and it's like, yeah, this is great, I love it. And then every once in a while, you will have a bad experience. You know, you didn't get something the way you wanted to, or your partner bumped into you a little bit harder, or they looked at you funny, or whatever it is, and you're taking money back out of it. If you do too many withdrawals, then at some point you're going to start having, you know, a more negative kind of mindset about your practice. So this, unfortunately, is not completely up to you, but the amount of it that can be up to you, take responsibility for that, right? Recognize the positive things that are happening. And the positive thing does not have to be getting better or making progress. The positive thing can just be, I like spending time with these people. I like listening to Sifu yell at me. I like just being on the mats. Whatever it is, you gotta find things, as many things as possible. And it's the same thing with anything in life. Anything that you truly want to become great at, that is very difficult, that arduous journey that you're going through, there will definitely be days where you feel like you're not getting better. There will be days where you feel like you're going backwards. And I promise you, if you're showing up and doing it regularly, you will be making progress. So that's the same idea as a test. Just instead of overanalyzing it, just do it. Just do it for a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or a year. And then decide, at the end of X amount of time, I'm gonna look back and see where what kind of progress I've made. I'm gonna see how I feel about it today. But it's so tempting to, I was talking to you about this earlier today, it's so tempting for us to, when we feel not so great about practice, about whatever, meditation, man, it is super easy to skip meditation if you don't just decide, I'm just going to do it. So this is one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever given. I had a student back at our school in Michigan, Diana told me after a couple of advanced classes, I don't like this. I'm bad at it, and I'm not enjoying myself. And she was very polite about it. That's me getting kind of the emotion behind what she said. She said, "Sir, I don't like advanced class. I'm bad at it." And I said, "Great. Come to 100 classes, 100 advanced classes, and after that, then I want you to look at it again and see how you feel about it." And she came to like 10 or 20 more, and she was totally in love with it and never looked back. And we still see her at retreat every year, and she's awesome. This idea of just setting aside whatever need for validation, progress, whatever, even the need to feel great about it today, just set it aside and look at it at a different time. This is super valuable. Because if you're feeling like crap about something today, and then you're trying to make the decision today, whether you're gonna keep doing it or not, you're more likely to just quit. And if you're allowing yourself to get back in the groove of things and look at it from a place of, yeah, I'm kind of more I'm identifying as my higher self, I'm identifying with the experience that I have more often, then it's a lot easier to keep going and allow yourself to be with it. So with meditations, the same thing. You're going to have days where you feel like you are terrible at meditation. You're going to have days where you feel like you're getting worse at meditation. And those are not the days for you to ponder, should I quit and just never meditate again? Those are the days for you to say, well, today was not my best day. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And then just look at it after a couple of months and see. And I'll make one guarantee to you. If you're meditating regularly, if you're meditating daily for at least 10 minutes, let's say, and you do that for several months, the amount of time I like to look at is 6 months, but you can look at it for at least a couple of months. If you do that and then you stop meditating, or you just don't even meditate for as long, maybe you skip a day or two, you will immediately feel the onslaught of thought that you were keeping at bay, all of that stress and all that garbage that you were taking out every single day with that meditation is now starting to pile up, and you start to recognize, I miss and need meditation. So you can just take my word for it and not skip meditation days, but that will happen. So I'm pretty much done here, but the testing that we do here is just totally different from other schools. It's kind of just like, and I've practiced in schools where it's like this, you just show up and you just show up to enough classes for enough time and you just get the next rank. There's no actual test. And it can still serve as the same idea of it being a milestone where I can look back and see the improvement that I've made from this rank to the other rank. The test is really nice. I love it because it makes that a very memorable experience. I promise you that you guys will never forget your Red Sash test. And it's not the most important thing. It's much more important to just do and allow yourself to be in the practice. Don't be attached to making any kind of improvement. Don't be attached to anything. Just show up and do it. And if you are finding like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm making as much progress as I want to, just set that thought aside for a while and then come back to it and ask yourself after another month or two, am I still feeling the same way? Have I made some improvement? Am I in a better place with it? And almost surely you will be. And this is just because the main job that we have is to just show up and do it. Your main job is not to get better. Your main job is not to be the best, to compare yourself to other people or even yourself. That's all the function of the ego. Your job is just to show up and to do it and to be. And if you can allow yourself to be here with however your experience is, then you can start to allow yourself to be outside of the dojo and not to be attached to anything there too. So that's what we're going to practice now. Sit comfortably.